Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.
Declares the Guyana government a caretaker administration but refuses to set a date for fresh elections. Our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Friday, July 12th. From the CMC News Center in Bridgetown, I'm Dawn Paris. Good evening. Uncertainty remains about when Guyanese will go to the polls 7 months after a no-confidence motion was passed against the government. The Caribbean Court of Justice, CCJ, which ruled last month that the motion was valid, on Friday said it could not force an election date on the government. We get more in this report from CMC's Peter Richards.
The Caribbean Court of Justice Friday afternoon ruled that it cannot establish a date by which elections must be held in Guyana. That means the issue is now back with Guyana's President David Granger. The CCJ President, Justice Adrian Saunders, delivering the consequential declarations from its June 18th ruling, said that the court must assume that all involved will exercise their responsibilities with integrity and in keeping with the unambiguous provisions of the Constitution. But he did note that the no-confidence motion was validly passed as long ago as 21st December 2018.
Article 106 of the Constitution invests in the President and the National Assembly, and implicitly in GCOM, responsibilities that impact on the precise timing of the elections which must be held. It would not therefore be right for the court, by the issuance of coercive orders or detailed directives, to presume to instruct the bodies on how they must act and thereby preempt the performance by them of their constitutional responsibilities. It is not, for example, the role of the court to establish a date on or by which the elections must be held, or to lay down timelines and deadlines that, in principle, are the preserve of political actors guided by constitutional imperatives.
Under the Guyana Constitution, elections must be held within a 90-day period following the passage of a motion in the Parliament, or unless extended by the National Assembly. The CCJ noted that challenging the validity of the no-confidence vote since January effectively placed matters on pause, even as it reminded all stakeholders of its ruling on June 18th. The opposition People's Progressive Party, the PPP, had wanted the court to order that elections be held by September 18th this year. It had also asked the court to order that the Elections Commission use the old voters list for the elections. But the court stayed away from granting these orders. Justice Saunders said it is clear that the government will remain in office, but its role is that of a caretaker administration in keeping with the provisions of the Constitution.
It is important, however, that the court makes this point. In mandating that the government shall remain in office, notwithstanding its defeat and the resignation of the President and the Cabinet, Article 106 envisages that the tenure in office of the Cabinet, including the President, after the government's defeat, is on a different footing from that which existed prior to the vote of no confidence.
The CCJ had last month also declared that the process used to appoint retired Justice James Patterson as chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission was flawed and unconstitutional, and was to deliver consequential orders on that matter as well. But Justice Saunders said that given that Patterson had resigned and the process to appoint a new chairman had started, it was unnecessary to issue any orders on that matter. Peter Richards, CMC News, Port of Spain, Trinidad.
The Antigua and Barbuda government says it's not aware of any breakdown in negotiations with Barbados regarding the sale of that island's shares in regional airline Liat. Media reports in Barbados indicated that the talks, which began a week ago, broke down after only a few hours. But in a message sent to CMC News, Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister Gaston Brown said that to his knowledge, negotiations had not stalled. He told CMC News that a counter-offer was made by Antigua, but he is not at liberty to discuss the details of it at this time. The Barbados media reports had stated that Bridgetown was not impressed with St. John's initial proposals. Antigua and Barbuda is seeking to become the largest Liat shareholder government and is in negotiations with Barbados to acquire most of that country's shares in the Antigua-based carrier. The other shareholders are Dominica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Grenada. Antigua and Barbuda currently has 34% shareholding, and if it succeeds in convincing Barbados to part with its shares, it would have 81% of the airline. Jamaica's opposition People's National Party, PNP, on Thursday led an anti-corruption march calling for commissions of inquiry into the affairs of the Ministries of Education and Energy. TVJ's Anthony Lugg has that story.
What you're seeing on your screen is a flyer distributed by the People's National Party, PNP, at the anti-corruption vigil in Halfway Tree, St. Andrew on Thursday morning. It reads, JLP must account for billions of taxpayers' money gone in 3 years. The flyer went as far as totaling the cost of corruption under the Holness administration at $13.8 billion. Hundreds of PNP supporters, frustrated, joined in the vigil at Mandela Park, demanding that Prime Minister Andrew Holness breaks his silence on the series of scandals rocking his administration.
And anything in the country, you don't come out and talk about it. You come everything, all of your boys them in your house, now go on good.
We still don't hear about the police cars from Mr. Holness. We still don't hear about the selling of guns at FLA from Mr. Holness. He's the person in charge. He can't always be saying he does not know, because he either need to be removed because of incompetence or be removed because of conspiracy.
PNP Vice President Damian Crawford pointed to those issues, but let's go back to the flyers issued during the vigil. They outlined more scandals ranging from issues on the health, science, energy and technology ministries, and in recent months, the education ministry. For that reason, here's what PNP President Dr. Peter Phillips wants.
We also expect that there will be commissions of inquiry established to look particularly at what has occurred in the Ministry of Education, in the Caribbean Maritime University, and in the National Education Trust.
The PNP says Thursday's vigil is the first in a series it will be doing across the island to bring awareness to what it terms the brazen plundering of the public purse by members of the political executives and their operatives who are yet to be brought to book.
We are going to continue to shout it from the streets, shout it from the rooftops, shout it from the communities until the corrupt behavior, which involves the misuse and plundering of the people's resources, stop.
And over in Trinidad and Tobago, National Security Minister Stuart Young says a commission of inquiry will examine the circumstances in which over $500,000 TT was paid to homeowners to acquire land for the extension of the highway from San Fernando to Point Fortin. Speaking at Thursday's post-cabinet news conference, Young said the commission, which will be established by cabinet, will be asked to determine whether criminal or civil proceedings should be brought against those involved, including a cabinet committee headed by former Prime Minister Kamla Prasad-Bissessar. We get more in this TV6 News report.
$100 million land acquisition venture riddled with inconsistencies.
And we found that over $500 million, $500 million of taxpayers' money was expended on the acquisition of parcels of land. And some of the parcels of land, it turned out, were not even necessary.
Minister Stuart Young seeks to justify to the public why Cabinet has decided to set up a commission of inquiry into the land acquisition process for the highway.
A particular public servant who went out and did valuations in his private capacity And then, lo and behold, when the valuations now need to be approved by the Commissioner of Valuations Department, that same person came and actually increased, in some instances, the valuation that he had provided as a private valuator, now increased it and burdened us, the taxpayers, with unjustifiable, according to the preliminary advice we received, unjustifiable values for the acquisition of certain land.
That public servant, he says, is no longer employed with the state, but in the meantime, there are still, according to the minister, 494 parcels of land yet to be acquired. And the state is facing a slew of litigation after some parcels were deemed no longer necessary.
You have one claim, a High Court claim, for $92.4 million. The second one, another High Court claim, $5.4 million. The third one, at the time of filing the claim in 2018, $116.2 million.
The into whether the
But opposition leader Kamala Prasad-Besessar isn't bothered by the inquiry. She says it will be a multi-million-dollar waste of taxpayers' money.
On the Commission of Inquiry, I have no problems with that. If anybody did wrong, they did wrong, deal with them in law. I am a believer in the rule of law, and should they be able to find any such thing, go ahead. Again, distraction.
Coming up in Caribbean Newsline, Barbados reverses its visa-free entry policy for Haitians. The details after the break.
Welcome to this year's 50th Caribbean Broadcast Union Assembly on the island of San Andres. San Andres is a small archipelago located in between Jamaica and Panama in the western Caribbean Sea. A lush, exotic island rich in culture, history, gastronomy, and breathtaking scenic views. Known for its beaches and 7-colored crystalline waters, the island of San Andres will be proudly hosting this year's event. CBU members will enjoy top-of-the-line accommodations for an unforgettable experience in San Andres, connecting Caribbean nations through this year's 50th edition of the CBU Assembly.
Are you guys having a good time so far?
So far, yes. Having a blast.
Yeah? How the vibes so far?
Vibes alright, man. Early settings. We just play out, go and hold it, you see.
You're living here now?
10 years.
Yeah?
10 years.
And how you find the event so far?
You know, it's a Facebook, you see, Pando.
The Barbados government has reversed its decision to allow Haitians into the country without visas. The island's ambassador to CARICOM, David Commichon, said Bridgetown had no choice because of the large influx of Haitians coming from Panama and Chile who were not entitled to work in Barbados. The diplomat said that the situation was becoming untenable, and the decision was made after extensive consultations with several stakeholders, including the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Immigration Department, the Ministries of Tourism and Home Affairs, the airlines, and the Grantley Adams International Airport. Ambassador Commichon said Barbados derived no pleasure from having to move away from the full visa-free regime, but it felt it had no choice. And he said that was communicated to the Haitian government. But he did point out that Barbados has a legal responsibility to admit Haitians on the same basis as any other CARICOM citizen. Most CARICOM countries have imposed visa restrictions on Haitians, even though their country is a part of the 15-member grouping. Veteran Barbadian Calypsonian Red Plastic Bag is to be honored by the University of the West Indies, and St. Lucians gear up for Carnival this weekend. We get the details in Newsline Entertainment with Marie Claire Williams.
Veteran Barbadian Calypsonian and soca artist Red Plastic Bag will be among 3 recipients of an honorary doctorate from the Cavell campus of the University of the West Indies later this year. RPB began his calypso career in the late 1970s, and he has won the Calypso Monarch title 10 times. He has also penned hit songs for several artists, including Ras Eiley, Alison Hines, and the late Mighty Arrow of Montserrat. Staying in Bridgetown, Barbadians are well into the crop over season. Last weekend saw the International Bashment Soca competition with Grenada's Mr. Killer among the performers. And after a weekend of fetting, it was the turn of the artists and the launch of the Visual Arts competition hosted by the Central Bank. Governor Cleviston Haynes noted the importance of art to the development of society.
The arts energize and unify people and stimulate economies, as exemplified in our national Crop celebrations, which is a festival of creative arts and culture. Crop increases Barbados's visibility as traditional and social media beam the activities of the world. The explosion of events, parties, and shows has added dynamism to the entertainment sector, and we have created a new export industry as our Calypsonians travel to perform. In short, Crop boosts economic activity, earns value for exchange, generates spend, and bolsters tourism, the mainstay of our economy.
The St. Lucia Carnival is on this weekend. Friday will see the National Panorama Competition, and the festivities will climax with the Parade of Bands on Monday and Tuesday. St. Lucia's Carnival comes on the heels of Vincy Mass earlier this week. Marie Claire Williams, Newsline Entertainment.
Ahead in Newsline Sport, the interim West Indies head coach wants to see the gap between first class and international cricket narrowed. We'll explain after the break.
One-minute mango eating competitions for primary school students and adults were some of the activities patrons engaged in during the first ever mango exhibition. Visitors were intrigued to learn of the 20-plus varieties of mangoes available on the island. Persons also sampled and purchased products made from the fleshy fruit, which included chips, amchar.
What happens when a bunch of kids get together?
Wait, no, scratch that. A bunch of crazy kids.
They create characters,
write stories,
record their voices,
make theme songs,
throw in some sound effects.
And what do you get?
Ew, there's gum under my chair. I had a dream last night that made me realize what I want to be when I grow up. Well, what was the dream? I was on a deserted island.
What are the key signs that start to indicate someone might not be safe in a relationship once they've gotten that far?
Yeah, so if you get to a point where the person you're dating wants to see your social media accounts, they want to know what you're posting and how you're posting it.
Oh my goodness.
If they're asking you what you're doing with your time, if they get upset because you're spending too much time with friends or because you're spending too much time with coworkers outside of work, that's definitely a red flag.
Sports. sports, and interim West Indies head coach Floyd Reefer believes the gap between first-class and international cricket needs to be narrowed if players are to be properly prepared for the demands of senior team cricket. Speaking on VOB's Mason and Guest radio talk show in the wake of the Caribbean-sized nightmare display at the ICC World Cup in England, Reefer also pointed out that fitness needed to be a key component of selection, and he said regional franchises have a major role to play in helping players reach their peak.
Well, obviously, going forward, fitness is key. You play cricket at any level or any international sport, football, basketball, anything you play, fitness. Most of the team, all the teams coming into the tournament, they paid a lot of attention to the fitness levels. That's something that we need to pay more attention to as we go forward. The fitness level of the players, and how we manage that situation as well. Obviously, we got to continue to work closely with the franchises to build a system. The fitness levels, we got to build our cricket. We need to bridge the gap between first-class cricket and international cricket. So it's important that we work together with the franchises in order to build our cricket.
Reefer said players needed to be developed in all areas if they were to be properly rounded when they reach the international level.
Everybody knows what is the problem, but we still need to find the solutions. So I think the solutions is we got to work well with the franchises and rebuild our cricket again. We got to get guys closer to international level. When guys come into international cricket, then we got to close the gap between our first-class cricket and international cricket, and that only comes with preparation at the lower level, good coaching.
Staying with cricket, Bermuda won the Battle of the British Overseas Territories when it thrashed the Cayman Islands by 7 wickets in the five-nation ICC Americas region qualifiers for next year's Under-19 World Cup on Thursday. Bermuda, hammered in their opening games by Canada and the United States, dismissed the Cayman Islands for 77 after winning the toss and electing to field. They then knocked off the runs inside 16 overs at King City's Maple Leaf Northeast ground. Only UK-born captain Luke Harrington-Myers with 18 and Ravon Johnson, who made 14, reached double figures for Cayman as medium pacer Tybray Robinson undermined their innings with 3 for 13 from 7 overs. Dallin Richardson then spearheaded Bermuda's run chase with a 26-ball 28, which included 3 fours, while other useful contributions came from opener Logan Jones, who made 17, and Ty Karaya, who finished unbeaten on 14. Switching sports now, Bahamian sprint sensation Shawnee Miller-Weibo ran a season's best to win the 200-meter finals at the Monaco Diamond League on Friday. She stopped the clock 22.09 seconds ahead of double Olympic gold medalist Elaine Thompson, who finished in a time of 22.44 seconds.
Another long hold in the set position, but they get away safely. And Taliu started the quicker, the diminutive athlete in lane 4, already up on the Olympic champion Thompson, and Miller-Weibo has run a very good bend indeed, and outside her skippers, all with chances here. Daniel's having a good run, but it's now Miller-Weibo starting to pull away from the others. Thompson is trying to hang on to second, but it's Miller-Weibo who takes it in 22.09. She might be a little disappointed with the time. I'm sure she would have hoped for sub 22 seconds, but that will come, and a season's best.
Moving over to action in the INF Netball World Cup, Barbados had a strong start to their campaign when they crushed Singapore by 69 goals to 34 on day 1 in Liverpool on Friday. The Bajans dominated each quarter, leading 17 goals to 6 in the first quarter, then 16 goals to 8 at halftime. The Caribbean side then reached 14 goals to Singapore's 10 in the third quarter and finished off the Asian side 22 goals to 10 in the final quarter. Goal shooter Shanika Wharton was the lead scorer, getting 27 from 29 attempts, and goal attack Shaniqua Thomas scored 9 goals from her 12 attempts. In the other matches, Jamaica won their first match against Fiji, 85-29. They also were on top of their game in each quarter. Top Jamaican goal shooter Janelle Fowler earned a 94% scoring rate as she shot 33 goals from her 35 attempts, while goal attack Romelda Aiken finished with 26 goals from 36 attempts. Meanwhile, Trinidad and Tobago's Calypso girls began their campaign on the losing end, going under to South Africa. TNT were never a challenge as the South Africans dominated each quarter. They had TNT 19-5 in the first quarter before netting a 10-point lead going into the half. The South Africans still held on to their lead in the second half until the final whistle when the score was 76-45. Well, action continues on Saturday with the Bajan girls hoping to make it a double against New Zealand, while Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago will go head-to-head. 12-time regional champions Guyana will hope to break their 3-year drought when they take on the rest of the region in the Caribbean Area Squash Association Championship in Trinidad. Newsroom's Akeem Green has that story.
Well, the 12 years of a strong hold on the title ended for Guyana. Even more heartbreaking, it ended at home. The second place finish followed them the next year in Jamaica, where they came inches to regaining the precious trophy. But Barbados again pipped ahead. It is now 3 years in the quest to return atop the summit, and there is enthusiasm bubbling, albeit reserved, that they could do the job in Trinidad and Tobago from July 14 to 20 at the Queen's Park Oval.
We have a chance. I wouldn't say it's the best of chances because, as I've said, the girls, it's going to go down to how things go on a particular day. Because we probably definitely win the boys. I think we win the boys team title. We probably finish second in the girls, and it just depends on how Barbados does in both the boys and the girls. So we'll see how it goes. But as I say, it all depends on what happens on a given day. But for sure we win. I think we win the boys, and we'll give a good account to ourselves in the girls. We may finish second, but.
And that's the sport. We'll be right back.
Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.
Welcome to this year's 50th Caribbean Broadcast Union Assembly on the island of San Andres. San Andres is a small archipelago located in between Jamaica and Panama in the Western Caribbean Sea. A lush, exotic island rich in culture, history, gastronomy, and breathtaking scenic views. Known for its beaches and 7-colored crystalline waters, the island of San Andres will be proudly hosting this year's event. CBU members will enjoy top-of-the-line accommodations for an unforgettable experience in San Andres, connecting Caribbean nations through this year's 50th edition of the CBU Assembly.
All right. So speaking of which, we have a lovely lady coming up next. She has a book called No Love, No Pain on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles. Everyone, please welcome Miss Tiffany Huff. Hi, Tiffany.
You look beautiful.
Thank you. So tell me about the book.
So it's about a lady that had a very violent past. And she tried to settle down, and her past came back and haunted her.
Oh.
But you got to read the rest.
Okay.
Again, the major developments of this day. The CCJ declares the Guyana government a caretaker administration but refuses to set a date for fresh elections. And in sport, interim West Indies head coach Floyd Reefer believes the gap between first-class and international cricket needs to be narrowed for players to be properly prepared for the demands of senior cricket. And that's Caribbean Newsline. For news and sport around the clock, subscribe to ConnerNews.com. For more of our programming, log on to CaribVision.tv and check out our YouTube channel. We'll be back here again on Monday, but from all of us at CMC News, thank you for watching and have yourselves a good night and a safe weekend.